I trusted her. Completely. 20 years of marriage, 2 beautiful kids. Emma, 16, with her quiet smile, and Jacob, 12, with his wild energy, and I thought we were unbreakable. Sarah was my anchor, my warmth, the one who laughed at my terrible jokes and held my hand through every storm. I built our life brick by brick. The house, the savings, the late nights at the office so she could stay home and paint her silly little watercolors. I gave her everything. Everything. And then, I found out. It wasn't some grand revelation, no dramatic confrontation with lipstick on a collar or a stranger's car in the driveway. No, it was quieter, uglier. A text message. One I wasn't meant to see. I'd picked up her phone to check the weather. Mine was charging, and there it was, glowing on the screen. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. From someone named Mark. My stomach dropped. My hands shook. I scrolled, couldn't stop myself, and every word was a knife. Months of messages. Plans. Lies. She'd been meeting him while I was working, while I was coaching Jacob's soccer team, while I was telling myself we were happy. I didn't say anything that night. I sat through dinner, her chatter about the kids' school projects buzzing in my ears like static. I nodded, smiled, watched her sip her wine, and tilt her head the way she always did when she was pretending to care about my day. Pretending. All of it, fake. My chest burned, but I stayed silent. I needed proof. I needed to know how deep the betrayal went. The next day, I followed her. Took a sick day from work, first time in years, and trailed her in my beat-up old truck, the one she always teased me about keeping. She drove to a coffee shop downtown, her hair bouncing as she walked inside. And there he was, Mark. Tall, smug, wearing a suit that screamed money. They laughed, held hands across the table. She leaned in close, too close, and I felt my world crack open. 20 years gone. Just like that. I could have stormed in, made a scene, demanded answers. But no, that's not who I am. I'm patient, methodical. I drove home, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, and started planning. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just lit the match. And I was going to burn it all down. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Sarah lay beside me, her breathing soft and steady, oblivious to the storm raging in my head. Every snore, every rustle of the sheets, it mocked me. She'd come home that evening with a smile, kissed my cheek, asked about my sick day like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't spent the afternoon with him. I mumbled something about a headache, kept my voice flat. She didn't notice. Why would she? I'd always been the steady one, the predictable one, the fool. The next morning, I put on my mask. "Good morning, honey," I said, pouring her coffee. She smiled. God, that smile used to mean everything, and thanked me. I watched her sip it, her hands wrapped around the mug I'd bought her for our 10th anniversary. "World's best wife," it said. I almost laughed, almost smashed it right there. But no, I had to be smart. Cruelty doesn't come from impulse, it comes from precision. I went to work, but I wasn't really there. My desk became a war room. I opened our bank accounts online, traced every transaction. There they were, little clues she hadn't bothered to hide. Lunch bills, gas stations near his part of town, a hotel charge from 3 weeks ago she'd told me was a girls' night. My hands trembled as I printed it all out. Evidence, ammunition. Then I called my lawyer, Tom. Old college buddy, discreet, ruthless. "I need options," I told him. "She's cheating. I want everything." Tom didn't flinch. "Divorce is messy," he said, "but we can make it clean for you. Kids, money, house. Courts favor the faithful spouse if you've got proof." Proof. I had it. Photos from my phone, screenshots of texts I'd forwarded to myself before she could delete them. I wasn't just going to leave her. I was going to take everything she loved. That night, something unexpected happened. Emma came downstairs while I was sorting papers in my office. "Dad." Her voice was small, hesitant. I shoved the bank statements under a folder. "What's up, kiddo?" She fidgeted, twisting her bracelet, a gift from Sarah. "Mom's been weird lately. Happier, but sneaky. I heard her on the phone last night. She didn't know I was awake." My heart stopped. "What did she say?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Emma frowned. "Something about a trip. With someone named Mark." I stared at her. My 16-year-old daughter, my quiet, observant girl, had just handed me a grenade. She didn't know it, but she'd picked a side. And it wasn't her mother's. Emma's words echoed in my skull all night. A trip. With Mark. Sarah wasn't just betraying me. She was planning to flaunt it, to escape with him, maybe even drag my kids into her lies. I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, suffocating. But anger, cold, sharp anger, cut through the haze. She thought she could humiliate me and walk away? No. I'd make sure she had nothing left to walk away with. The next day, I moved fast. Tom met me at a diner across town, greasy, anonymous, perfect. He slid a folder across the table. Here's the draft, he said. Custody, assets, alimony. She won't get a dime if we play this right. I flipped through it. Bank accounts frozen. House in my name. I'd paid every mortgage penny. Kids with me. She'll fight, I said. Tom smirked. Let her. She's got no leverage. I didn't stop there. I called the bank, transferred our joint savings, every cent I'd slaved for, into a new account she couldn't touch. $80,000. Gone from her grasp in 10 minutes. Then I hit the safety deposit box. Her grandmother's jewelry, the stuff she always bragged about? I took it. Not to keep, just to twist the knife later. I was calm, methodical, a machine. That afternoon, something blindsided me. Jacob burst into the house, face red, eyes wet. Dad. Mom yelled at me. I knelt, grabbed his shoulders. What happened? He sniffed. I asked about her painting class. She's been gone so much, and she snapped. Said I don't get to question her. My jaw tightened. She was unraveling, slipping up. Good. Let her dig her own grave. I hugged Jacob, told him it was okay. But inside, I was ice. She'd insulted me for years in secret. Now she was turning on the kids. That was her mistake. I took them out for ice cream, kept them close, started planting seeds. Mom's been busy, huh? I said casually. Emma nodded, eyes sharp. Too busy. Jacob just licked his cone, quiet. They didn't know the half of it yet, but they'd choose me. I'd make sure of it. By nightfall, the plan was solid. I'd leave her with nothing. No money, no kids, no dignity. But first, I needed her to feel it, the weight of her own ruin. I waited until she was asleep, then slipped her phone from the nightstand. Unlocked it, same old password, our anniversary, the irony. I sent Mark a text from her. Meet me tomorrow. Noon. Our spot. She'd show up. He'd show up. And I'd be there too with a camera. The morning sun crept through the blinds, slicing the bedroom in harsh, jagged lines. I didn't sleep, couldn't. My eyes burned. But my mind? Sharp as a blade. Sarah stirred beside me, oblivious, her hair fanned across the pillow like she was still the woman I'd married. She wasn't. That woman was dead, replaced by this liar, this thief of my life. I watched her breathe, counting each rise and fall of her chest. 1, 2, 3. Every breath fueled my resolve. Today, she'd fall. I slipped out of bed, silent as a shadow, and got ready. Black coffee, bitter, like the taste in my mouth, 2 sugars for the kids' cereal. Routine. Normalcy. A mask I wore better than she ever could. Morning, Dad, Emma mumbled, shuffling into the kitchen, her phone glued to her hand. Jacob followed, dragging his backpack. Morning, I said, voice steady. Big day at school? Emma shrugged. Test in history. Jacob grinned. Soccer tryouts. I nodded, ruffled his hair. You'll crush it. They didn't see the storm in me. Good. They'd need that innocence a little longer. Sarah came down as I was leaving. Have a good day, honey, she chirped, kissing my cheek. Her lips felt like poison. You too, I said, forcing a smile. She didn't notice the edge in my voice, the way my eyes didn't meet hers. She never did. I grabbed my keys, my camera, hidden in a work bag, and left. The truck rumbled to life, and I drove, not to the office, but to the coffee shop. Their spot. Noon was coming, and I'd be ready. I parked 2 streets over, hood up, sunglasses on. A ghost in plain sight. The shop was busy, hipsters with laptops, moms with strollers, but I found a corner table, ordered a black tea I wouldn't drink, and waited. My phone buzzed. Tom. Papers finalized, his text read. Say the word, and we file. I didn't reply. Not yet. I needed her humiliation first, public, undeniable. The camera sat heavy in my lap, lens capped, a weapon of my own making. 11:55. She walked in. Sarah. My wife. Her sundress swayed, her laugh carried across the room as she waved at him. Mark, already seated, smirking like he owned the world. Owned her. My pulse hammered, but my hands stayed steady. I lifted the camera, zoomed in. Click. Her hand on his. Click. his arm around her shoulder. Click. Her leaning in, whispering something that made him grin wider. Every shot was a nail in her coffin. I didn't feel rage anymore, just cold, surgical purpose. Then it happened. The first twist. A woman stormed in short, furious, heels clicking like gunfire. "Mark," she shouted. Heads turned. Sarah froze. Mark's smirk vanished. "Lydia," he stammered, standing. The woman, Lydia, slapped him, hard, the sound echoing. "You told me it was over with her," she yelled, pointing at Sarah. My jaw dropped. Another wife? Another betrayal? The camera kept clicking, capturing Sarah's face, pale, panicked, as Lydia tore into them both. 20 years, Mark. And you're here with her. Sarah tried to speak. I didn't know. Lydia cut her off. "Save it. You're as bad as he is." The shop went silent, all eyes on the wreckage. I lowered the camera, stunned. Sarah wasn't just a cheater, she was a fool, played by a man who'd lied to her too. For a heartbeat, I almost pitied her. Almost. Then I remembered her texts, her lies, her sneers at Jacob, and the pity evaporated. This was better than I'd planned. She'd humiliated herself without me lifting a finger. Mark grabbed Lydia's arm, pleading, but she yanked free and stormed out. Sarah sat there, trembling, alone. Mark didn't even look at her as he chased after his wife. Perfect. I stood, left a tip I didn't owe, and walked out, the camera warm in my hands. Evidence. Chaos. Her ruin was unfolding, and I'd barely begun. I drove home, mind racing. The kids would be at school till 3, plenty of time. I uploaded the photos to my laptop, printed them in crisp, damning color. Her face, his, Lydia's rage, all laid out like a storybook. Then I packed. Not much, just my clothes, my files, the kids' favorite things. Emma's sketchbook. Jacob's soccer ball. The jewelry from the safety deposit box went into a lockbox I'd bought that morning. 80 grand was already safe. The house? Let her keep it for now. She'd lose it soon enough. The doorbell rang. Unexpected. I froze, mid-packing, and peeked through the window. A delivery man, holding a package. I signed for it, addressed to Sarah. Curiosity gnawed at me. I tore it open. Plane tickets. 2. To Paris. Dated next week. Her trip with Mark. My blood turned ice. She'd planned to leave us, me, the kids for him. I laughed, a hollow, jagged sound. She'd never see Paris. Never see a dime. I called Tom. "File it," I said. "Today." He didn't hesitate. "Done. She'll be served by 5. I hung up, then texted Emma and Jacob's school. Early dismissal, family emergency. I'd pick them up, tell them enough, not everything, not yet, and we'd go. Somewhere she couldn't find us. My sister's cabin, maybe 2 hours north. Isolated. Safe. 3 o'clock. I pulled into the school lot. Emma climbed in first, frowning. "What's wrong, Dad?" Jacob followed, quieter than usual. "Is Mom okay?" I gripped the wheel, forced a calm I didn't feel. "Mom's making some choices. We need a break. Just us." Emma's eyes narrowed. She knew more than she let on. Jacob nodded, trusting. I drove, the kids silent, the weight of what I'd done settling in. 5 minutes from the cabin, my phone rang. Sarah. I let it go to voicemail. She'd been served. She'd seen the empty accounts, the missing jewelry, the photos I'd left on the kitchen table, taunting her. Her voice came through, shrill, broken. "What have you done? Where are the kids? You can't do this." I deleted it. She'd scream, she'd cry, she'd beg. Too late. We reached the cabin as dusk fell, the air crisp, the world quiet. Emma hugged me, unexpected, her voice soft. "I'm glad we're here, Dad." Jacob just clung to his ball. I looked at them, my kids, my anchor, and felt the first crack in my ice. This wasn't just revenge. It was survival. For them. For me. But Sarah? She'd feel the cold soon enough. The cabin smelled of pine and dust, a stale stillness that clung to everything. I'd been here before, summers with Sarah, the kids splashing in the lake, her laughter filling the air. Now it was just us, me, Emma, Jacob. No laughter. No warmth. Just the hum of the fridge and the creak of the floorboards under my boots. I dropped our bags by the door, flicked on a lamp. Yellow light spilled across the room, weak, flickering. Like me, maybe. But I couldn't afford weakness, not now. Emma sat on the couch, knees pulled up, staring at her phone. No signal out here. She didn't complain, just watched the blank screen, her face tight. Jacob kicked his soccer ball against the wall, thump, 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 until I snapped. Enough. He stopped, wide-eyed, then curled up beside Emma. They knew something was wrong more than I'd said. I hadn't told them about Mark, the photos, the money. Not yet. We're staying here a while, I said, voice flat. Family time. Emma nodded, slow, suspicious. Jacob just hugged his ball. I cooked dinner, canned soup, stale crackers. We ate in silence, spoons clinking against bowls. My phone buzzed, face down on the counter. Sarah again. I ignored it. She'd called 6 times since we left voicemails I wouldn't hear. Let her stew. Let her scream into the void I'd made for her. The kids finished, cleared their plates without me asking. Bed, I said. They obeyed, too quiet, too quick. I watched them climb the rickety stairs, shadows swallowing them, and felt a pang. Not guilt. Something else. Loss, maybe. For them. For what we'd been. Alone, I sat by the window, lake glinting under the moon. My hand shook, first time in days. Adrenaline fading, reality sinking in. I'd taken everything. Money, kids, her pride. Tom's papers would have hit her like a freight train. Divorce, custody, no alimony. The photos on the table? A good punch. She'd be scrambling now, calling lawyers, friends, anyone. But she'd find nothing. I'd planned too well. The bank accounts were locked, the jewelry hidden, the kids out of reach. She was alone. Good. Then a knock. Sharp, insistent. I froze, breath catching. No one knew we were here. My sister hadn't been up in months. The nearest neighbor was miles away. I grabbed the fire poker, rusted, heavy, and crept to the door. Another knock. Hello. A man's voice, rough, unfamiliar. I peeked through the curtain. A guy, late 40s, scruffy beard, trucker hat. A stranger. Who are you? I barked, poker tight in my grip. Name's Carl, he said, hands up. Live down the road. Saw your lights, thought this place was empty. His eyes flicked past me, curious. Just checking. I didn't relax. It's not empty. We're fine. Go. He nodded, backed off, but something in his stare lingered too long, too knowing. I locked the door, watched his truck rumble away. Paranoia? Maybe. But I couldn't trust anyone now. Not after her. Sleep didn't come. I sat up, poker across my lap, listening to the night. Crickets. Wind. The kids' soft breathing upstairs. Then another sound. A car engine, distant, growing closer. Headlights flashed through the trees. My stomach twisted. I stood, peered out. A sedan, sleek, black, slowing near the cabin. Not Carl's truck. Not my sister's junker. Someone else. The car idled, then cut its lights. Silence. My heart pounded, slow, deliberate thuds. Sarah? No. She didn't know this place. Mark? Doubtful. But someone was here. I woke the kids. Downstairs. Now, I whispered. Emma blinked, groggy. Dad? Jacob whimpered. What's quiet? I hissed, pulling them to the back room. I shoved a couch against the door, handed Emma my phone. If I don't come back, call Tom. Numbers in there. Her eyes widened, but she nodded. Jacob clung to me. Stay with your sister, I said, prying him off. I grabbed the poker again, slipped outside. The car was still there, dark, no movement. I crouched, edged along the cabin wall, breath fogging in the cold. Closer. 10 feet. 5. The driver's window rolled down, slow, deliberate. A face leaned out. Not Sarah. Not Mark. A woman, sharp features, dark hair, maybe 40. You're a hard man to find, she said, voice low, calm. I gripped the poker tighter. Who are you? She smirked, faint. Lydia. Mark's wife. My mind reeled. Lydia? From the coffee shop? The slap, the fury, her. What do you want? I growled. She stepped out, hands empty, coat flapping in the wind. Same as you, she said. Revenge. I stared, poker lowering an inch. I tracked her, Sarah, after that scene. Found your house empty, papers served. Guessed you'd run. Took a chance on this place. She nodded at the cabin. Your sister's, right? Public records. I didn't answer. How? Relax, she said. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to help. Help? My laugh was bitter, jagged. I don't need help. She tilted her head. You sure? Sarah's not alone anymore. Mark's back with her, crying, begging. They're planning something. I've got proof. She held up a phone, screen glowing. Photos. Sarah and Mark, hours ago, outside my house. Talking. Close. Too close. Blood roared in my ears. She'd gone back to him? After everything? Lydia watched me, unblinking. They're coming for you. The kids. The money. I know where they are. Right now. I swallowed, throat dry. Why help me? Her eyes hardened. Because he ruined me too. 22 years. 3 kids. I want him broken. Her too. I didn't trust her, couldn't. But her words sank in, cold and heavy. Sarah and Mark, together again, hunting me. I'd underestimated her. Them. Show me, I said finally. She nodded, tapped her phone. A video loaded, grainy, timestamped tonight. Sarah's voice, sharp. He can't keep them from me. We'll find him. Mark, quieter. I've got cash. Lawyers. We'll take it all back. The poker slipped from my hand, clanged on the ground. They weren't just fighting. They were plotting. Lydia pocketed her phone. Your move, she said. But decide fast. They're not waiting. I looked back at the cabin, my kids, asleep, vulnerable. The ice in me cracked, just a little. Not fear. Fury. She'd humiliated me, insulted me, and now this? I'd been cruel. Cold. But not brutal, not yet. That was about to change. Lydia's words hung in the air sharp, piercing. Sarah and Mark, scheming together, coming for my kids, my life. The night pressed in, cold and endless, but I didn't flinch. How do I know you're not lying? I asked, voice low, steady. She smirked, bitter, not amused. You don't. But I've got nothing left to lose. You do. She tossed me her phone. I caught it, scrolled. More photos, Sarah outside a motel, Mark handing her a stack of cash. My stomach twisted. Cash? He was funding her fight. I handed it back. What's your plan? She leaned against her car, arms crossed. We hit them first. Hard. I know his accounts, offshore stuff he thinks I can't touch. You've got her pinned legally. Together, we drain them dry. I stared at her, this woman, a stranger, as broken as me. And the kids? I said. They stay out of it, she replied, firm. This isn't their war. I nodded, slow, reluctant. An alliance. Not trust, but necessity. Fine. But I lead. She shrugged. Your funeral. We traded numbers, agreed to meet tomorrow. She drove off, taillights fading into the dark. I went inside, checked on Emma and Jacob, still asleep. Safe. For now. My mind churned. Sarah wanted a fight? She'd get one. But I'd be the one left standing. Morning broke gray and heavy. I left the kids with a note. Gone to town, back soon, and met Lydia at a diner off the highway. She slid a laptop across the table. Mark's accounts, she said. Hacked his passwords years ago, he's careless. I scanned the screen. 50 grand in a Cayman account, more in stocks. Can you move it? I asked. She grinned, first real smile I'd seen. Already did. To a dummy account. He'll notice tomorrow. I called Tom next. She's with him again, I said. Motel on Route 12. Cash involved. Tom whistled. Violates the restraining order I slipped in. We can use it, custody's locked now. I hung up, turned to Lydia. Your turn. She nodded, dialed the contact, some shady guy Mark owed money to. Tell him Mark's flush, she said. He'll come collecting. Chaos. Perfect. By noon, it was done. Mark's money gone. Sarah's legal ground crumbling. I drove back, heart pounding, not triumph, just cold satisfaction. Then my phone rang. Emma. Dad. Mom's here. Panic seized me. What? She's outside, yelling. I floored it, tires screaming. Sarah, here? How? I skidded into the driveway, dust choking the air. Sarah stood by the cabin, banging on the door, her voice shrill. Emma. Jacob. Let me in. The kids peeked through the window, faces pale. I jumped out, roared. Get away from them. She spun, eyes wild, mascara streaked. You took everything. My babies, my life. I stepped closer, calm, lethal. You threw it away. For him. She laughed, a jagged, broken sound. You're pathetic. Hiding, stealing. I'll get them back. I held up my phone, showed the motel photo. With his money? Courts won't let you near them now. Her face crumpled. Then, unexpected, she lunged, clawing at me. I grabbed her wrists, held tight. Stop, I said, ice in my voice. You're done. Headlights flashed. A car screeched up, Mark. He stumbled out, frantic. Sarah, we've got trouble. My accounts, he saw me, froze. Then another twist, a second car. Carl, the neighbor, stepped out, grinning. Heard you're loaded, Mark. Where's my cut? Lydia's call had worked too well. Mark paled. Sarah screamed. You set us up. I didn't answer. Just watched them unravel. Carl advanced, cracking his knuckles. Money. Now. Mark stammered. It's gone. I don't. Sarah turned on him. You said we'd win. He shoved her, first time I'd seen him snap. You dragged me into this. She fell, sobbing. I didn't move. Didn't care. Emma and Jacob ran out, clinging to me. Dad, make it stop. Emma begged. I hugged them, turned them away. It's over, I said. Police sirens wailed. Someone had called. Cops swarmed, cuffs out. Mark resisted, got tackled. Sarah wailed as they dragged her off, breach of order, assault. Carl slipped away, unnoticed. I gave a statement, showed Tom's papers. The kid stayed close, trembling. An officer nodded. She's got no claim now. You're clear. Lydia appeared later, leaning on her car. Told you, she said. Broken. I didn't thank her, just nodded. She drove off, a ghost in my war. The kid slept that night, exhausted. I didn't. I sat by the lake, replaying it all. Sarah's screams. Mark's panic. My victory. Cold. Brutal. Complete. Days blurred. We stayed at the cabin, quiet, healing. Emma sketched. Jacob kicked his ball. I watched them, felt the ice in me thaw, just a little. Tom called. Divorce final. Full custody. She's got nothing. I exhaled. Good. Sarah tried calling once, blocked her. Mark? Jail? Debt's piling up. Lydia sent a text. We're even. I deleted it. One night, Emma sat beside me. Did you have to destroy her? Her voice was small, searching. I looked at her, my daughter, too smart, too kind. She destroyed us first, I said. She nodded, leaned on my shoulder. Jacob joined, silent. We sat there, three against the world. I'd taken everything, money, kids, her dignity. Cruel? Yes. Cold? Absolutely. But regret? None. Sarah humiliated me, insulted me, thought she'd win. She didn't. I did. The lake rippled under the stars, calm, endless. Like me now. Not whole, not yet. But free.